Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alan Smason. I'm the president of the American Jewish Press Association. I want to thank you all for being here today. A very important topic, and one that doesn't come up at the top layer of discussions when you start talking about security. Most people talk about, how is your alarm? How are the video cameras? Are they in place? Do you have good coverage in terms of preparedness? In the event of a actual shooting or some other incident, what measures do you have in place? But very few people talk about a multi-billion-dollar scam industry that goes on daily, which can affect not only us as publishers and media, but also can propagate throughout all layers of the society. I'm talking about cybersecurity. We have with us today two very important guests who are going to take on two different aspects of cybersecurity. And I'd like to welcome them to our show, Brad Orsini and Perrin Olson. For those of you who have not had the pleasure of listening to any of the other times you might have been able to have an opportunity to listen to Brad, he is a very fascinating speaker, and I'm going to give you the full details on his biography in just a little bit. And also, by way of introduction and also in full transparency, I'd like to admit that Perrin Olson, in a previous lifetime, was the web developer responsible for the creation of the Crescent City Jewish News, which I edit and publish. So again, if it weren't for Perrin, I wouldn't be here as part of the AJPA, and we want to thank him for that as well. So let's get the ball rolling. Brad Orsini joined the Secure Community Network as the senior national advisor in January of this year, just in time for the pandemic, right, Brad?
Yes, sir.
You are, again, the official who's in charge of safety and security for the Jewish community in North America. That's under the auspices of the Jewish Federations of North America, or the JFNA as it's called, and the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations. In your role, you speak on security questions and concerns. You're a consultant to a great number of communities all across the United States. Now, from January 2017 to January of this year, you served as the Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh as its first director of community security. And of course, you were there during that terrible crisis that we had with the Tree of Life Laura Simcha shooting, which was, of course, the worst anti-Semitic incident in American history. And you were there. Prior to joining the Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh, you were a special agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and you were with the FBI until you retired in December of 2016. You were there from 1988 until 2016, a long and I would assume satisfying career. And then you took off on another direction with your working as a consultant with the Jewish community, and we do appreciate that. You were also working with the Public Corruption Civil Rights Squad at one point in time, and again with all of the goings-ons this past year with Black Lives Matter, et cetera. I'm sure you had quite a bit of exposure to some of the people that were involved with that as well. So we may ask you a couple of questions about that. But again, I know you come from a background in the military. You were an officer in the Marine Corps, a captain, and you actually got your BS in Administration of Justice from Pennsylvania State University. Again, Brad, I'd like to welcome you to the program today, and thank you so much for being here. Also with us is Perrin Olson. Perrin is a CPSM. Now that stands for what, in case anybody asks?
Certified Professional Services Marketer.
All right, I knew you would know that. And again, you're now working as a Chief Strategy Officer for MyIT, and MyIT was actually part of a consortium, sort of took over MyIT. The name of that is what, ECS?
Yeah, we merged in January, and we're now called ECS plus MyIT.
I got you. But you work now with MyIT's proactive support team, their clients, to basically secure networks, educate the employees, and you implement best practices as part of working with the Jewish Federation of Greater New Orleans. you actually have had a webinar similar to what you're doing today, but you conducted in cybersecurity for the Federation here, and we did appreciate you doing that. You are also, I'm proud to say, an Eagle Scout, a graduate of Loyola University here in New Orleans. You enjoy the outdoors as a fact, I guess, of your scouting, or maybe
Yes.
because of it. And you also were a volunteer with the Audubon Zoo, so you know how to handle animals, and that may come in handy because during this pandemic, you were dealing with two daughters and a husky as well as your wife, right? So,
Yes.
so knowing all of that is important. Anyway, we want to thank you for being here as well. We're going to take questions a little bit later, but we have some formal presentations. We'd like Brad and Perrin to take over right now and do their presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Brad. And please hold your questions. If you have a question for me, you can send it directly to me in the chat. Or if you want to hold it until we get ready to open up the lines, you can do so then. So Brad, you take it away.
Thank you, Alan. I really appreciate it. Happy to be here today to talk about this. Alan, you hit the nail on the head with cybersecurity versus physical security. So I've been working now in the Jewish community for almost 4 years. In my first 3 years after I left and retired from the FBI, I did a lot of assessments, physical assessments in buildings all across Pittsburgh. And now, you know, I work with communities all across the country, actually all across North America. And one of the things we do on our assessment, we just don't do the physical structure anymore, because one thing we've really noticed is our Jewish communal organizations. We take a look at their websites. We talk about good cyber practices, good cyber hygiene, on what we should be looking for. And I will tell you, that is so important to constantly look at our sites and try to prevent any kind of intrusions. Now, I am going to make my first admonishment. I am not a cyber expert. That's why Perrin's here today. So, you know, I know enough to be a little dangerous, but the basics are what we're going to talk about today, and that higher level on what we're seeing across the country. And really, since COVID, we are now on this virtual platform, and we continue to do it. The threat to the Jewish community has not decreased one iota across our country. You know, I conversely, it has probably increased. We see a proliferation of hate over all our mediums, whether it's social media, whether it's our website. We see that on a daily basis. I look at the threats and incidents across the country every day. We have a duty desk at Secure Community Network. We collect information on a daily basis. You know, it's an intelligence center, right? Information goes up and then it goes out, right? And we want to feed our security directors all across the country with this information to really put our community in the best possible light to mitigate any of these threats. Daily, see daily cyber intrusions. And I was telling Lauren and some of the group this morning before we even started, I woke up to a phishing scheme. And I'll explain what that is in a minute, but it was basically an attempt by an individual who used our national CEO, Michael Masters, and basically took an email that looked similar with his name in it and sent an email to me this morning asking me to respond with certain information. That's just a basic phishing scam. That happens in our community every single day, multiple times a day. And so why do we need to be concerned about this? One, we need to protect our institutions. We need to protect our financial posture and on our websites. You know, our communal organizations, nonprofit, we rely on donor basis. We need to keep that secure. So we've seen kind of a plethora of attacks across the country from white supremacists, neo-Nazis. We've seen this and heard this Zoom bombing. I'm not going to spend really any time on that today. We've talked about that so much, but we still see it. And every time I see one of these Zoom bomb attacks, especially in communities that don't have communal security directors. We now have about 50 of us across the country that really help our Jewish community put together a kind of a consolidated and uniform security procedures. But when I go in and see that somebody got Zoom bombed in an organization, one of the first things I do is I look at their website, how they're pushing information out, how they're collecting information, who can see things in their website, what are we advertising? And usually they're just a wide open website and just conducive to hackers. So really important to understand that. This is something that is only increasing over the years, and especially in COVID. It is, a hacker can send out 100 email phishing attempts. All he needs is one person to catch on to that, right? And that hackers has money, right? There are estimates from different groups. Every 39 seconds, somebody is trying to infiltrate or penetrate one of our systems, whatever that looks like. And really, most of the times, it is user error. It is absolute human user error that these hackers are successful. So I'm not going to read or regurgitate these statistics to you, but it happens all the time. And in the Jewish community, over the last year, we have seen a substantial loss of money because of these phishing schemes, because of ransomware, malware, whatever that cyber intrusion is. So we really got to be on top of our ball game in this environment that we're in right now. What's the landscape, right? We have nation state actors from overseas trying to infiltrate our systems. We see white supremacy hackers on a daily basis into our system. What's their intent, right? Their intent is to disrupt what we do, try to steal money, try to steal information. And that's really what we're talking about with the landscape. And in the Jewish community, we see them from all over the place, and from these hackers. And the Zoom bombings are, we've known they've come from white supremacy. We've seen them come from kids. We've seen them from all across the country right now. So really have to think about this as we're planning an event, right? How do we advertise? And so the most vulnerable areas for us, if I break this down really, and it's kind of simple, breaking it down between user error, right? So email phishing attempts that are going right to an individual, like I talked about this morning, that I actually received on my email, right? And what do we do with that information? And that's between that and insecure password practices, that's 43% of cyber attacks and cyber intrusions, and that's pure human error. So if we move into the IT world, which I am sure Perrin is going to expand upon, is, how do we configure our systems? What do we look at? And one of the basic things is this improper configuration of our systems. And really, when we get this software and we get this great software that's supposed to protect us, most organizations are just so quick to use the standard configuration, the default configuration, and then not actually tailoring it to the needs of that particular organization. And so really important for our IT folks to understand that, and as they deal with these cyber intrusions. And then as our IT system grows, what's that last area, that patching, right? And patching is nothing but taking our systems and upgrading existing software applications to remove any weak security patches that could be exploited. And that really is kind of the areas that we see that we have problems with, especially in the nonprofit world. Hackers really target the nonprofit world because security, sometimes physical security is a luxury. Cybersecurity, as good as we do, may not be up to par with some kind of corporate cybersecurity practices that we see that are best practices. And that's really what we're looking for. And so kind of in a nutshell, what can you do? What can you do as an organization, right? And first and foremost, we just really need to assess our organizational's online presence. What does that look like? Do we have a organizational website. How open is that website? Do we have a members only section where we might want two-factor authentication to get in there? How do we protect that organization? Conversely, besides our website, our Facebook sites, our Twitter accounts, who's looking at them? How open is that Facebook site, or is it closed? So I was telling the story this morning to a few folks that we did a cyber presentation from one of our major Jewish organizations a couple weeks ago. And what I did is I took 10 organizational websites and I looked at those websites and I thought, let's see how secure those websites are. And out of those 10 websites, we really saw a porous website where people can really glean too much information. And what is too much information? Let's think about what we do for a living. And Jewish communal organizations, we're really great at advertising who we are and who our staff is. But sometimes we go a little too far. I actually viewed several websites that had the entire financial department on their website with pictures and emails from the chief financial officer to the controller, to the accounts receivable, accounts payable, bookkeeper. Why do we need to advertise to people who are these folks are? What is that? That's a hacker's dream, right? They now have the emails to these individuals. Now they're sending phishing attempts. Also, on one of the sites, we had all that with the pictures. So what do hackers do? They will go into your Facebook account. They will identify you from your email, from your picture, or on your LinkedIn accounts and try to build a relationship with you. And that really just opens us up to these hackers, these fraudsters that are trying to steal money or information for us. So it really starts with that digital presence and what we look for. Password, passphrases, really, really important, right? Do not have a limit on the number of characters you have. Encourage passphrases, easier to remember, harder to hack. And always think about two-factor authentication for our organizations to get in to really keep us more secure. We need to learn how to protect that data that we're handling, right? So if we're a nonprofit, if we're a federation, we're a JCC, heck, a newspaper organization, a lot of our organizations in the Jewish community are also based on fundraising, right? How do we control that fundraising and our donor information? And we need to protect that. We really need to understand what our security procedures are, and that the folks that work for us, a lot of times people come and go, employees come and go, and are we taking them out of our system? Are we making sure they cannot access now into maybe our private account, right? How we really control that information. And when we talk about this cyber phishing attacks, and if you get that strange email, right, when in doubt, throw it out, right? That's the basic thing. We do want you to report that information. We see phishing attempts, we see cyber intrusions every day throughout the Jewish community across America. So really that's really important to report that. There is ways and there's reasons and rationale why we report this. All right, there is a clear, I came from an organization from the FBI. We have a group called IC3. That's the Internet Complaint Center. That's a repository of all these cyber intrusions. Those groups like that build patterns to ultimately facilitate an investigation where they can move forward and arrest and indict and prosecute these hackers. That's why it's so important. So yes, you want to, not open this up. You do never want to open up an attachment for somebody that you do not know, but it's really important to kind of keep that safe and secure, right? Reducing your online footprint. If you're an individual that has been threatened, or you're a forward-facing person in the community and you get threatened, there are ways to reduce that online footprint from us, right? Your risk profile. You can actually go into these companies that sell your information, and really important that we limit that. So for example, if you're on Amazon Prime and you're searching for tennis shoes, and the next thing you do, you open up your Facebook account, what do you see? You see those tennis shoes, right? The best deals on tennis shoes. How does that information happen, right? These companies sell your profile, and you can actually reduce your footprint, and we can give you ways to reduce your footprint, your digital footprint, and keep you more anonymous, right? We always talk about avoiding that Facebook challenges, right? We're all online constantly every day now. One of the biggest intrusions that we saw was one of these basic Facebook challenges in May of this year, when all the high schools were graduating and these kids could not go out and march and get their diplomas, and everything was online. So everybody feeling bad for these kids, let's do this Facebook challenge where go ahead and post your picture and your high school that you went to, your high school picture, the town you're in, the high school you went to. What have you just done? You've given personal information to potential actors out there, right? Potential hackers, where they now see a picture, they have a name, they know where you went to high school, and now you have these folks that are trying to steal your identity or do some type of intrusion. Now you're giving them all this personal information. We really need to be smart about how we share that information. If you have a Zoom attack, we want you to report that. We want you to record that. We have probably facilitated a lot of investigations across the country in the Jewish community based on these Zoom attacks. So important to report this. IC3, CISA, the Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency, that's the part of Homeland Security that collects this along with the FBI. We need to report this. If you have any questions, you can always send them to us, to our duty desk, securecommunitynetwork.org. We actually have a daily briefing that we send out. I think that's a good way to stay connected on what kind of incidents we see across the country. And you can register for that daily newsletter at securecommunitynetwork.org, and you will get that daily feed of what security incidents are happening across the country. And with that, I am going to stop and turn it back to Alan and or Perrin to finish up. And I'm happy to stay on as long as you all have questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Brad. And again, we want you to stick around for just a little bit. We're slated to have this go all the way till 1 o'clock my time. I think it's 2 o'clock Eastern time. I think Perrin will be able to take up some of the challenges that are more specific in terms of what affects us on an everyday basis. You pretty much covered the whole broad spectrum of what affects the Jewish networking and the Jewish community at large. But I think Perrin can actually talk to a little bit more specifically about how to protect ourselves. And for those of you who especially are doing telecommuting from outside remotely into the office and do not have a VPN or some other structure that you're using to come into your office network, perhaps he can give you some best practices, and then we'll pick up after that. I know that Shane has got a question I'm gonna pose to both of them in just a little bit. Perrin.
Yep. Get my screen up and all right. So we can see everything?
Yep.
Great. Yeah, so that one kind of transitioned. My role is really a business technology strategist, and we primarily work with small, medium businesses, including many nonprofits, including the Great New Orleans Jewish Foundation, as Alan mentioned earlier. So I'm going to kind of take more of a business approach to this, knowing Brad was going to cover more of the faith side of things, and he definitely works much deeper than we ever get into that. So it has a lot more insight on a national level with his background with the FBI. But we're more of a kind of the local IT provider, definitely have some size to us, and we see a lot of things, but we work primarily with SMBs. So first thing is, I think it's always important to kind of even understand why this is happening and kind of get some of the myths out of people's heads. A lot of people think cyber attacks are only for big companies. Brad had a stat of 42%. I've seen them 50%. One of the ones I've been seeing more recently from Verizon is 58% of malware attacks are SMBs. I have to understand the mom and pops of the world are getting attacked. And it's simply a very simple reason why. You're easy. like it's easy prey. You don't have the same fortifications of a Microsoft or a Google or, a major company like Bank of America or Chase. Like those are hard. Go after a lot of little ones, and they don't need to score $10 million. They can get you on 10 million people. So you got to think of that. And even the average loss, this is not the ransomware cost. This is the ripple effect of downtime, lost revenue, lost clients, lost potential clients, is 2.2 million for SMBs. Most companies don't have this laying around, and most people don't have insurance yet for this. And even if they do, insurance plans are usually about $1 million. I mean, you can get $1 million insurance, cybersecurity risk insurance plan for about $1,000. It still doesn't always cover everything. And there's a lot of loopholes in that, a lot of ways not to get that paid. So it's got to understand, half the attack victims are SMBs, and it costs about $2 million. And this is growing every year. This has been growing cost. So this is the 2018 stat actually. And this does hit faith-based. People kind of think there's never going to be anything faith-based, but there was a case just last year. The Catholic Church, they got hit for 1.7. And as you're probably aware, the Jewish community got hit just a couple months ago, $7.5 million. So this is either they're tapping into accounts and siphoning money out, or it's a phishing attempt. As Bradley showed, and I'll show you some examples of what a phishing attempt will look like a little bit later. It's easy to do. Sometimes it's literally a click of a button, you can lose $7 million. So these are real things that really happen. So we go much more in depth on that if we ever need to. But the other thing that helps is I'm a business guy. I look at strategy, how businesses grow, and what makes them tick. And I think one of the fascinating things is you have to kind of understand what a hacker's business model is. Most people think a hacker wants to get into a big company like a Bank of America to get that $100 million score. And this is what's kind of going on. It's a numbers game. If they send out 10 million emails, phishing emails, and they get a 0.01% conversion rate, they get 1,000 hits. So what does that mean? The challenge is they're not getting 0.01% hit. They're getting a 5% hit rate. So they're making 500,000 hits, and average ransomware alone is $133,000. They're making $66 billion off of sending out those emails. That's the business model. And they're smart business people that they reinvest. They'll take this money and buy a bigger list, buy more machines to send out these emails, more IP addresses, and more things like that. And they just keep reinvesting. It's actually one of the best business models I've ever seen. It's just completely illegal. So it's a bit of a risk reward, but for some people, and especially in countries that don't have the same rules that we have, this is a great business model. And you have to understand that this is their business, and it's only escalated with COVID. They love the fact that we're working from home. They love the fact that the election was disputed, because that adds chaos. Chaos is good for criminals, and including cyber attacks. So once you kind of understand what they're trying to do, you get that. And my background in marketing, it kills me that hackers have a 5% click-through rate, because on a cold list, a good marketer can usually get 2 to 3%. And the main reason why hackers are so much better than marketers is they can lie. They can give away a house. They can give away $1 million. They can say, click here to get a brand new Chevy, whatever. And people click. Versus a marketer that has to actually follow by rules. So that's one reason why those hit rates are so good. So, some basic ways that you can help protect yourself. The biggest one is you need to take the tinfoil hats off and be realistic with things, and realize you are a potential victim, both personally, your organization, your clients, your vendors, things like that. There's a lot of different ways to go through this, and I'm actually excited to see the federal government's actually working on supply chain certification when it comes to cybersecurity. And because they realized the attack vector is actually through the supply chain. Target was breached years ago, very famously through their HVAC vendor, like their air conditioner vendor got hacked, and they got connected to Target. Target was not breached, but that avenue, that pipeline in through their vendor is what happened. So we're seeing a lot more certifications on the supply chain level. A lot of our clients are trying to get more secure because their clients are requiring them to do this. So a lot of it is just the thinking. You have to stop thinking that this is two big companies. You have to stop thinking the world is ending. There is a way to live with cybersecurity and still get work done. So we're obviously a lot of people working from home. I see a few people working from home even right now. So let's talk about a few ways to even protect yourself and protect your company or organization. So one is use a company device. Some companies have a bring your own device policy, and that's fine, and they need to have some safeguards and policies on how to use that. But we highly recommend people, when they're at home, bring their device home. This is where prevalent of getting a laptop, you can bring that home. We want you to use company emails. It's very easy to confuse your personally, Gmail or Yahoo or AOL, whatever email address you're using, and now you're sending different things. And it's also just when you leave a company, whether fired, quit, retire, what have you, where does that data reside? We want it to reside with the organization. So use the company email. And that also allows us to centralize the data. When the data is centralized, IT has a chance to back it up. If it's sitting on your home computer, on your home email, we don't have a chance to back it up. We don't even have legal actions to go get it. Is an issue. So, and while you're at home, if you want to connect via VPN or remote desktop or SharePoint, what have you, this is where your IT professional will come in and kind of tell you what's the best way to connect. And it's different for every company. I don't have a rule that says you should always use this. And all of them have their benefits, all of them have their negatives. And there's a way to, a hacker can actually penetrate each one. So you have to have a strategy for that. And it's something simple, is just lock your device. It's company policy for us. When we get up from our desk, we're away from our screen, we hit the Windows L to lock our screen. And it just becomes second nature. The same with locking your cell phone. When I first came to the IT world, I was very frustrated by locking my phone. And then I had kids, and kids trying to unlock your phone. It's really nice to have it password protected. Things like that. But this is also just as you have house guests back at your house, as you just do things, you don't want your kid getting your device. Can actually hack systems without even knowing it, because they just get on your keyboard and start pounding away, and they can lock you out of your passwords, things like that. So locking your device is a good practice to have, whether you're in the office or in a coffee shop, at home. Just set those things, and it's free. It's one of the best security things you can do, and it's free. Another good one is that two-factor authentication that Brad mentioned. So that comes more into the protecting your passwords. Minimum, you want 8 characters. The longer the better, because I'll show you in a second where that actually comes into play. You want to mix your uppercase, your lowercase, your numbers, your symbols, and all that. Make it tough for somebody to guess. You want to reset it every 90 days. And this rule is actually changing. The National Institute of Standards and Technology is actually changing their rule from resetting your password every 90 days to once a year if you have two-factor authentication, which means you have to either get a text message or you use something like Microsoft authentication or Google authentication to basically say from another method, this is legit login. So we're extending that to 1 year. So if you really love your password and you're tired of changing it, two-factor authentication is one of the best ways, because the reason that is a hacker can easily potentially crack your password is one way, or they'll buy your password off the dark web. And a lot of people reuse the same passwords on multiple sites. So they'll buy your password off of the dark web and then literally stuff that same combination, your username or your email and your password, into hundreds of sites, in particular your 365 email, your Gmail email, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They'll literally try to shove all that in. And if they have that two-factor authentication set up, they can't get in, because now they have to hack the password plus your phone. And you really want to get rid of any unused logins. Stop using your password for everything. And if you really have to, you can use a password manager. We don't really have any problem with that. But you don't want to use the same password for everything, especially things that you use for single sign-on, like your Microsoft email, your Google, Facebook. If you log into other things using your Facebook login, now that's called a single sign-on. So you need to show that that password is unique. And even a simple thing, occasionally go into Facebook and look at all the places you're logged in. It might be your work computer, your cell phone, your home computer, your iPad, your things like that. You'll be surprised how many places you're actually logged in. So go in and log out of other devices is a great feature to go do that. So here's a fun little test I highly recommend you guys look at, is howsecureismypassword.net. And you type in your favorite password, the password you're using right now, and it will tell you how long it will take a computer to crack. So this is one of my passwords. It'll take them 34,000 years to crack. The main thing here is actually character count, and if you're using some complexity, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols, things like that. So if your password is like cat, C-A-T, it'll take them a few seconds to crack. So this is a little deceiving because this is how long it takes a computer to crack. There are things called supercomputers, and hackers do have access to them because they're making $66 billion. They can afford supercomputers. So this number will get expedited, but still, the longer the password, the more complex the password, the harder it is to crack. So I've done this presentation and shared this example a handful of times, and I've had somebody say, she followed up with me and said, I finally got my husband to change his password to something more secure because I showed him we can crack it in like 8 minutes. So use this tool, this howsecuremypassword.net. It's a great little thing. That it just kind of helps you understand that your password is really complex and more secure. So it just goes back to the passphrases that Brad was mentioning. So another thing is changing your organization's policies on request. It's sometimes still a big brother. With our merger, we have a few more policies and ways to get things approved. But some of them are very simple and very easy to do. So if somebody sends you an email that says, hey, send money to this person, change the account number, send this information, you need to verify that request some other way. Whether you call them, text them, visit, confirm with a different person, use a code word even. I remember as a kid, my parents said, if so-and-so ever picks you up, they need to know this code word. That's their buzzword, that they know that they can't come kidnap you. I don't know where my parents got that from, but I still remember that code word. That's an important thing. And you notice I'm not saying verify via email because most of these phish requests come in via email. We're seeing more of them coming over text message. You've probably seen a few recently of a fake Amazon tracking code or UPS tracking code that you've gotten on your phone. Those are all phishing attempts. It doesn't have to be email. You can get voicemails. There's a lot of different methods. We even do with our clients, we'll do USB drops. So we'll take a thumb drive and put some cool applications on it. We'll actually label the thumb drive called like 2020 layoffs. Or one time I got a client actually had one of their competitors' thumb drives from a trade show I went to, and I dropped it in the front lobby of their office. Yeah, they opened that up within 5 minutes. So there's other ways. Don't just think phishing has to be email, but you need to verify requests. And I'll give you a quick story. There's a Fortune 500 company out of the Midwest a few years ago that had a severe breach. The HR director got an email from the CEO, supposedly the CEO, requesting all the W-9s and all the W-2s from the last 5 years. Fortune 500 company, that's a lot of people. So she sent it within minutes. She works 3 offices down the hall from the CEO. She could have literally just gotten out her desk and gone, hey, did you really mean to send this? But what happens is when if somebody specific like a CEO, a CFO or something asks you to do something, what do? You don't question it. You stop what you're doing and do it. And that's what the person the hacker was preying on. And very simple, when the FBI got involved in this one, they looked at the email address that it went to. It wasn't even close. Like it was an easy thing for her to see, and it was a major breach. It was one of the biggest breaches in phish at the time. So I'm going to go through a few phishing attempts that we've seen. I've got this one a while back, and there's a new spree coming around from my manager. But my favorite is the CEO at My IT Support. That's our legitimate domain name, but our CEO does not have an email called CEO. But they're easy. A hacker can make a script that will turn this in, and they can send out 10 million of these out in a few minutes. And I love this here. Just upload it here. So you got to look. You got to hover over it. Does this link make sense? Does this something my CEO would ask of me? I don't know why he would ask me for this kind of statement. I wouldn't have this anyway. But it's a good chance that they can get people to click on this and upload this very sensitive information. So every once in a while they get a jackpot. Some of them are pretty silly, like this one. I don't know if anyone's ever been to Pizza Hut recently instead of Pizza Hut. But this is actually a test email we'll send our clients, but you'd be amazed when people click it. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that's wrong on this. The domain, the logo's wrong, the domain name's wrong. There's just all kinds of fun stuff. And occasionally hackers will actually do one, will slip one by you. I was trying to clean up my email box one day, and I actually clicked unsubscribe. And that was the jackpot link. Luckily, it was a test email, and I just had to do more training, but it's still kind of deceiving because all the other links were legit. And I was like, this isn't relevant to me anymore. And I unsubscribed. And get more training. Here's a fun one. You can see straight out the bat, Microsoft is highly misspelled. and all this craziness behind it. But when it comes in your Outlook, you don't always see all that. You just see an email from Microsoft. And there's a new thing going around that we just found out. Hackers are actually using Google's notification system as a good hack. What they're doing is they have a document and they're sharing it with you. So it actually comes to Google like a legit share, because it is actually them sharing a document with you. And in the document, it says, click here to do something. And people fall for it all the time. So it's a new way of using good for evil things. So this one's a fun one. Just, click here to get my OneDrive, my file that I put up in my OneDrive. So if you're not expecting a file from somebody from OneDrive, don't click it. So what happens in this case is somebody's email got compromised, most likely because they either used the password and it got bought off the dark web, or they just guessed it and hacked it, and they got into the person's system and they sent out thousands of these emails to this person's address book, and this link is to a virus.
Perrin, let me interrupt real quick. How can somebody who is working in Jewish media and get something like this, how can they determine for themselves whether or not it's legitimate? Is there anything that they can, any keywords or whatever they can tell?
It's not the security. A lot of it's just hovering over the link, and is it just legit? And this is actually why some of the link shorteners have become a bad thing, because you can hide the real address in them. So
like tiny URL or something like that.
Tiny and Bitly and things like that. That's actually the reason Twitter expanded their character count was because of that. A lot of cybersecurity professionals were really pushing on, like, you guys need to stop using these link shorteners, because it hides the real data. And this comes back to just, if you're not expecting a file, like if Alan sent me this and I'm not expecting it, this is where I text him or call him, like, Alan, did you mean to send me this? What is this?
Right.
I know him. And that's what they're preying on, is they'll get into one account and then hit that address book and push it out from there.
And what I really want to say is that if somebody was compromised, let's say the CEO or somebody they know, it may not be them actually sending it out, but they've actually got the email, they're spoofing that address, and they are attempting to get you to fall for it as well by using somebody that you know.
Yeah, I think we've all seen on Facebook where somebody says, my account's been hacked, don't accept friend requests. Their account actually hasn't been hacked, it's been spoofed. And Brad kind of alluded to this earlier about people take your picture off the website and your name, they kind of make a fake account, and then they start friending all your friends and having a conversation, and basically they're impersonating you. So there's a multitude of ways in this one. This case, we know the case. This is one of our clients had this issue. It was a soon to be terminated employee that was using their password for the same password on all things, and it got hacked. And then the person was not following policies and things like that. So there's other reasons that person got laid off or fired, but this is one of the things that added to that. So, and then just some other simple ones. This one actually I love. I got this one was, this person says, I think you sent this invoice to me on error. The intent is then I would open up this attachment and say, what invoice is this person sending? And they even did a fake response. But I sent them the email and they're responding back to me with, hey, I think you sent this to me wrong. My CEO a couple years ago got an email from somebody very similar and basically like berating him and cursing him out for not following up on this, phish attempt before. And they said, how dare you send me this invoice? And it was an attached PDF. And it's like, and then they kept following, they kept going. Like it was like 3 or 4 emails before it stopped of just this, how bad a customer service, and he's going to call the Better Business Bureau and all. And it was just fake. It wasn't a client, and a bigger company that has more clients, it'd be easier to fall for because you don't necessarily know every client. And this one's a fun one. This is actually one of our test emails. People get a speeding violation, and we actually put in the company's address. So this is 6620 Riverside Drive is my company address. And so this is our test we'll send out. And you got to just think about this. How would the Department of Motor Vehicles know my work email address to send me a moving violation? You just got to think about it that simple. But when you get this, your immediate reaction is like, I didn't do that. And you click it and you want to go dispute it. They're trying to get you caught off guard. Even something as simple, this is a common one. Netflix will send out, your account's going to get, cut off because you didn't pay. Why is Netflix emailing me at work? They don't have my work email. And this is another reason why you need to separate personal and work emails. Keep your personal stuff on personal. That way, this makes it easier to spot these kind of things. So this catches a lot of people. And this happens about twice a year. You'll see this big push of them faking Netflix things. Disney Plus came out. They did it to them. Like, here, your 30-day trial is running up on Disney Plus. And you're like, I didn't sign up for Disney Plus. Like, just anything a hacker can do. They're even spoofing Sean Connery dying. Like, just, it's amazing what hackers will prey on. They really just don't care about ethics because they're criminals. So, and I'll tell you, one of the scariest emails I got, to kind of just wrap up my portion, is a couple years ago, I was running out of town to go do a presentation, and I was trying to close in my house, and we were going back and forth with the seller and the title company and the real estate agent and stuff about getting all the documents. We did power of attorney because I was going to be gone the day the seller could do the closing. And I got an email from our mortgage company that says, click here to upload your documents. And it literally just kind of thought, I'm like, okay. And I'm literally hours away from running out of the house, office, the last day before you go on vacation or a holiday, you're kind of scrambling, trying to get your to-do list stuff. And I just was scrambling. And it literally right before I clicked, I'm like, wait, why is the person emailing me at work? Why all of a sudden we switch? Because I even had the realtor texting me at times. I said, look, if you need something important, email it to me and text me that you did it now, because I don't check my personal email all day at work like I do my work email. Like, oh, maybe the realtor sent it to me at work just because I told them I'm going out of town and all this whole thing. Yeah, that was a very good fish attempt that hit me on the right day. How would the hacker know that I had a Wells Fargo mortgage and I was about to close? And it was just, the percentage of somebody clicking on that was very low. But if I would have clicked on that and uploaded the documents they're asking for, he would have everything, or she would have everything. They could easily stole my identity and everything. And that's what you got to think of it. Sometimes they're not trying to get specific, because if it came from any other bank, I was like, I don't have that bank. This is a phishing attempt. But it was the right day, the right bank, the right link, and everything just kind of lined up. And I was luckily smart enough just to wait that extra 5 seconds, and they're like, this doesn't smell right. Hovered over the link, it didn't look legit. Texted the realtor, wasn't legit. Called the title company, just made sure things were not legit. So, that's one of those things. Things sometimes just line up perfectly that they're trying to get you.
All right, Perrin, I appreciate you're doing all this today, and again, that's your information. We're going to have this available. I've had a couple of questions coming from Shayna, and I want to ask first off, Brad, do you recommend a different software or platform to Zoom? We talked about Zoom bombing, so I'd like you to tackle that one, and I'll ask Perrin to respond about the second question from Shayna.
Yeah, no, I think Zoom, when COVID started and Zoom expanded, they caught up and installed several new security devices on there. So I think Zoom is about as safe as anyone. The key is you just got to understand what the best security practices are on Zoom, right? So if you're going to use Zoom in a webinar format, it is really secure, right? Now we see how we're going to have a waiting room. Zoom has really done a good job and evolved over the last couple of months to add those additional security procedures in there. So I think it's about as secure as you can get. And look, and I've said this to so many communities, these Zoom bombings have been an incredible nuisance. They're incredibly annoying. There are things that, like, we're recording the program today. To get into this, you had to be admitted, right? We're looking at who's coming in. So if you're going to use Zoom and you just see a telephone number, you don't have to admit people. And there's also devices, if something bad happens, we can get rid of them. I've watched the videos of Zoom bombings across the country early on in COVID. We've actually predicated investigations that FBI and other law enforcement because of those Zoom bombings. But most of them have been, they're annoying. They're there to scare people. They're there to disrupt your meeting. But if we use the security enhancements that are put in, it's about as safe as any other platform. And I don't, Perrin, I don't know if you would agree with that or not.
We have no issues with Zoom, especially with the newer policies. We tend to lean on Teams just because most of our clients are on 365, and it's kind of built into the price. It's a price thing, not a security thing. But yeah, we have no issues with Zoom. And like I said, if you look at their security log, what they've done this year, it's amazing the amount of stuff they've done. But it hurts
But a good practice though is don't advertise on the line or through other means, through emails, what these particular meetings are, where other people can get a hold of them who are not necessarily able to see them, where they're posted publicly on Facebook or on other social media, so that other people can then get a hold of it and then go into the meetings and then disrupt them. So that's
Yeah.
the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, a lot of they have the ability for registration too. And it's incumbent upon the organization that you have a more vetted sign on, right? So name, email, verified, organization, right? Just getting more information on that registration before they actually even get accepted or get that Zoom link, right? Never share the Zoom link publicly on your Facebook site, right? That's the big no-no. That's the obvious one. But boy, there's ways we can really limit that. We even talked about that during the high holidays. How are we going to let people in to our Zoom meeting, right? Who's going to vet them, especially if we haven't seen them? Are they a dues paying member or are they a friend, right? There are ways that we can really control that. And Alan, you're absolutely right on that, sir.
Yeah. The other question, Perrin, I wanted to have you answered from Shana was, can you address what we should do as a business if we are requesting a payment from somebody, for example, issuing an invoice that's paid via a Stripe portal?
Yeah, and most of those companies are legit. I mean, biggest thing is just use legit software. QuickBooks, Stripe, PayPal, things that you've heard of. Even the newer ones, you just kind of do a background on those companies and you follow their security, but make sure there's two-factor authentication so somebody can't get into your account and get your money out, because they are connected to your bank account. Even just kind of vetting things. I got a website lead yesterday from a major company, publicly traded company that usually doesn't come to a company like us. They're having trouble finding laptops. So we literally did a background check on the guy, like looked them up on LinkedIn, looked them up on a customer database. Like, is this guy spoofing? Is this person spoofing? And we legit, like, we did more background check on this company than we should have for a prospect. Like, he's trying to buy stuff from us. But we would make sure that he wasn't getting spoofed and we're going to get stuck with a $5,000 or $50,000 bill. So it's just kind of do your due diligence on those kind of things. None of these applications are really bad. It's just they sometimes can be used in bad manners. Some of those things are kind of annoying. Like if you're in PayPal 10 years ago and you try to sign up for a new PayPal account now, the number of hoops you have to jump through to get.
Oh my goodness, yeah,
insane.
Yeah, I know it well. Painfully, I know it all well.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to set up a bank account for a nonprofit organization last year that I started for the business, and it was insane amount of hoops we had to go through. And I'm like, I just want to set up a bank account, but it's all the all the things that help prevent somebody from using a bank account for malicious reasons. So,
but there's also the other added problem now is that they have no support. They used to be able to have a telephone support. Now it's all done through the web. You have to request information through chats and waiting for them forever and ever to respond to you. I want to open up the the questions right now. If anybody has another question, Shana, thank you for your 2 questions. But if anybody else has another question right now, we've got a few minutes remaining. I'd like to have them open up, put your microphones on, and let's see if anybody has any questions for our guests, Perrin Olson or Brad Orsini. If not, I will mention something that happened to me. Those of you who were at the AJPA conference in St. Louis about, 2019, a little over a year ago in the summertime, I actually was one of those people who was singled out for having a really solidly hardened website that one of their experts had gone and tried to hack into all the different websites and found several, including several big political groups in Washington and elsewhere around the country who were easily hacked. They easily got into it. And, some of those people cared about it. Some of them really didn't care. But in my particular case, it wasn't even 3 months later that I had a direct denial of service attack that took me and my website down for 3 or 4 days. I couldn't upload stuff. Now, the website was still up, but because it had been so overwhelmed by all these denial of service attacks that were from 3 different countries, my website and several others that I maintain out of like 300 on a server farm all went down in terms of being able to answer requests. They all stayed stable. They were all up. They didn't actually sever their connection to the internet, but we couldn't upload things to them. We couldn't get to them. So again, no matter how hardened you are from outside attack, you can still be attacked. So please keep that in mind. Jessica asked a question. How do you recommend storing passwords if they're long and complicated? And somebody mentioned a password manager. You might want to talk about that.
Yeah, so you can use a password manager called LastPass is one we commonly recommend. Basically, just have to remember the one password to get into that. There's an old trick that actually the military would use where you actually come up with a passphrase yourself. Say it's basketball. No, it's probably too long. Baseball is probably a better example. And on your keyboard, you literally go one letter up or one key up. So if you're looking at your keyboard, baseball would be, you'd go from B to G, A to Q, things like that. So that's kind of your passphrase, is that baseball with one letter up or one key up. And then you add in the first two letters of the website you're on. So if you're going to Facebook, it's capital F, lowercase a. Then you do your crazy little baseball trick, and then you add in your favorite number and exclamation point. So that's one of my guys that's heavy in the cybersecurity. Our Air Force Reserve cybersecurity taught me that trick, and it works really well. I will warn you, it's a little tricky sometimes when you go from a full keyboard on your computer to an iPhone or Android. You don't have the full keyboard. Some of the keys don't work. So you have to kind of find which ones work, what word works. Find your buzzword that you're going to remember. Maybe your kid's name, how, things like that, because you're changing the name. It's not, you're no longer typing baseball. I'm typing in
Right.
GAW, whatever. And then you add in the first two letters, capital letter, lowercase, and then your favorite number. And so you're kind of standardizing what you want. And then if you know that there's a breach involved, that Facebook got breached or, bank got breached, now you change your buzzword or what direction you change your key. And that's your standard. So that's a good way to kind of foolproof it. And it's an old, like World War II trick.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a couple of little keywords for passwords too that I've learned through the years working in computers. One of the things is to put your capital words, your capital letters, not in the beginning and the end, which is where everybody does it, but more in the middle. When you put like something like, if you said baseball, it would be lowercase B-A-S-E, capital B-A-L-L.
Yeah.
When you do something like that, it's much more difficult to get. And also to transpose letters for numbers. For instance, the letter A can easily be substituted for the @ sign, or the number 1 can easily be substituted for an L, or perhaps you might even think about a 0 being substituted for an O. These are all possibilities that you can utilize, and again, are little tricks that will help you keep a more secure password. I want to thank Brad Orsini for being with us today. Again, thank you, Brad, for being here and staying the whole hour with us. And again, very interesting. I hope that everybody enjoyed your presentation, especially as it specifically addressed issues reflecting on the Jewish community. And again, Perrin, I want to thank you for giving some specific tips to many of our members here. I hope that they were able to glean some of that for themselves. And again, we're going to keep this archived on our website for the AJPA. And if anybody needs to reach either Brad or Perrin to follow up, their information is in the presentations that they have. And I believe that we're going to be providing that to them after this is over with. Everybody who registered will get their information, the PowerPoint presentations, etc. So on behalf of the American Jewish Press Association, my name is Alan Smason. I want to thank you all for being here. And again, thank you to Brad. Thank you to Perrin. Thank you to everybody who's doing everything. And again, a very happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And also coming up, happy Hanukkah. Take care. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone.